the nature of awareness itself is totally clear. This is one of the things one of the sort of first things in spirituality that's essential is to start to be able to make this distinction, actually, between the absolute pristine clarity of awareness and what arises within its field. As we've done during this retreat, or I've done during this retreat, we can point to the absolute pristine nature of awareness. Not what's in awareness, but awareness itself. So everyone's innate awareness, not a special state of awareness, but just the current state of awareness, it's always there. The awareness itself is totally clear, totally without any blemish whatsoever. It's always that way. What arises within it, whether a thought, a feeling, a memory, a fear, a scene, you open your eyes, you look around, whatever arises within it may or may not be confused. But the nature of awareness itself is totally clear. This is one of the things one of the sort of first things in spirituality that's essential is to start to be able to make this distinction, actually, between the absolute pristine clarity of awareness and what arises within its field. When we start out, generally, awareness, in a certain sense, at least experientially, is often fused with whatever's in its field. So awareness is fused with just the next thought that comes up, or the next feeling that comes up, or the next reaction that comes up. Or it could be something positive, the next moment of happiness or well-being or joy or whatever. But when awareness is fused with the contents that arise within it, this is sorrow. This leads to sorrow. This leads to suffering. Right? Because when it's fused, we feel that fused state as a sort of innate contraction. I think we only really recognize what this contraction is or how it manifests in ourself when the contraction is no longer there. Even if it's no longer there for a short period of time, then we realize, oh, that's what the contraction was. Because before that, we hear contraction and we're looking for a specific place. Like, it's a contraction. Like, okay. You may or may not feel like you have a specific contraction in your body, but the contraction that's caused by this fusion of awareness with the contents of awareness it's so generalized. It's all throughout your entire system, your whole being. It's physical, it's emotional, it's psychological. It's kind of spread out liberally everywhere. But and sometimes when you're really suffering, you really feel a tight contraction. When people really get in really deep states of sorrow, their whole body will take on the manifestation of this contraction. If you're in a really deep state of sorrow, you'll generally, people will really start to bear down. They'll physically, that contraction will become very overwhelming. It will be on the surface, But generally, it's a little more diffuse. So there's the teachings that are really starting to point out the nature of awareness, and not just that the nature of our own awareness is unblemished or pure. It's clear. It's just clear. It's often likened to the sky. It's just totally clear. Like I said, usually when people look towards their awareness, they're not actually looking to the awareness, they're looking to the content. And they go, well, yours might be pure, but mine is full of garbage, you see? But that is to miss that we're not really talking about, at least at this point of realization or wisdom, we're not really talking about the content at all. Like I said, this is one of the very first and important things to try to break apart this fusion of awareness with its content, right? Because when it's fused, then I am the next thought I have. I am the next feeling I have. If I have a reaction, that's all I know. That's my world. That's all I am. That's the only option I have, is to feel the way the next feeling that comes, And so it's a very, as I said earlier, it's a very sort of topsy-turvy place to be, right? The world of manifestation is a topsy-turvy place to be. I mean, yesterday you walk outside and it's beautiful and the sun's shining, and today you walk outside and there's, rain and a little wind and it's a little cold, and, it's very, the world of manifestation is just always changing, isn't it? Constant, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. No change, no life, right? Life is like a flame. It has to be moving. It has to change. Otherwise, there's no life. It's just death. But not only is our innate awareness really quite clear, but when this fusion of awareness with its content really breaks, when it's no longer fused, then the awareness, then our identity is no longer found within the content. It's no longer found within how I feel in this moment, what I think in this moment, what I remember from the past, my whole image, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, your quirkiness as a personality structure. All of that may be there, but none of it defines awareness. And as I hope we've done in this retreat, when we look at all the content of awareness, we'll never find self in the content. There will seem to be self, but when we look very closely and very precisely, like I said, almost like a scientist, like when you're looking at this, it's almost like putting yourself, your conscious awareness, your mind under a microscope. Your microscope is your attention. The microscope is your awareness. And we're using that to look very, very close. And we'll always see that no matter what part of the content of our experience or our awareness that we find, that there's always going to be, you will always be prior to that content. And we, without knowing it, we confess this all the time with the language we use. We say, I'm thinking, or I feel, whatever I feel. I think, I feel, I believe, I am good, I am not so good, I am spiritual, I am not spiritual. But all these definers, spiritual, not spiritual, good, bad, worthy, unworthy, they're all objects that arise within your awareness. They're things you're aware of. Things that generally human beings are totally fused to. Again, awareness gets fused to those states. When we really look at them really carefully, they start to unfuse, because we start to see that while there is a thought of self, there's really no self in that thought. Although there's a feeling that pertains to something static, that there really is nothing static. There is nothing really there. And so our sense of self at any moment through doing that it's almost like it just jumps from one to the other. It just sort of spontaneously returns to it comes out of this state of being fused, and all of a sudden the sense of self returns to awareness itself. So there's lots of teachings, lots of my teachings will sort of point to this dimension of realization. The realization, of course, is actually experiencing, sensing, feeling, knowing, yourself or your being as that awareness. The awareness that was there all along. It was never hidden. You never had to produce it. You never had to deserve it. You never had to get into some wacky, crazy state of samadhi or anything. It was just the garden variety awareness that was always there. This is usually the point that's so surprising to anybody, that when the realization comes, you kind of go, well, God damn, this, I was looking for this, but I was using the awareness to look for awareness. You see what I mean? So I say it's like you're looking for God using her eyes. Do you know? When really God is her eyes. Right? So this is kind of one aspect of realization, is when there's a identity shift from the content to the context. The context is awareness. So we usually start identified with the content, at least the content of our own psychology, you could say. When that fusion just lets go, then identity returns all by itself to its natural state of awareness. And it's timeless because it's not changing. You look back through your life. This is actually the thing that provides us with that sense, that intuitive feel that you look back over your life and so much has changed, hasn't it? You look back at a picture when you're a kid or a teenager in your 20s, and so much has changed. You've grown and you've evolved, but there's somehow just some intuitive sense of me, right? Somehow you recognize something existing through time, even with all the change. There's just a basic intuitive sense that somehow you're there, right? But if you really look at it, all the content of your experience has always been changing from as far back that you remember, right? Your thoughts, your feelings, your hopes, your dreams. There's some things that are probably somewhat familiar, but it's basically always changing. Right down to the cells in your body. You don't have the exact same cells in your body that you had when you were a kid. They've died and gone and been replaced. And so this kind of pure awareness is actually what we are. As I said, that's the great joke of it. That's the great. On one side of the equation, it's not a joke at all. You feel fused and confused, and it just seems sort of obscure. And then all of a sudden, oh. And it's usually more like, oh, really? Almost like, because no matter how much we're told, we're often, it's the spiritual mindset is very much like looking for a needle in a haystack. You're looking for the right experience, the right kind of stillness, the right this, the right that. We're looking for the right realization. We're constantly on this search for just the right something that's going to indicate, right? Meanwhile, the real reality that we're really looking for is the looking that's there the whole time. Your idea of yourself is on this little search or big search. And this whole thing is happening within the pristine quality of awareness. Right? And we keep thinking that I have to find just the right little thing, just the right understanding, just the right experience, you see, in all of this stuff, all these conclusions, all these assumptions are taking place in the mind. They're part of the content of awareness. The whole thing happens part of the content of awareness, you see. And so the more we get caught in that, the more we look and look and look and look and look and look, we don't seem to find, right? Because it's as if we're looking for a needle in a haystack. the joke is that the reality that we're really looking for is the haystack. See, that's the joke of it. Right? You thought I had to find just the right little piece of hay, the enlightened little piece, and pluck it out and, put it in my pocket, and that's going to be, my enlightened little piece. And that's the embarrassment all. You're just looking through, this whole thing. It's, meanwhile, the awareness is there from the very beginning, before you even had the impulse to search. While you have the impulse to search, after the impulse is gone, it's like it's there all the time. So this is one quality of awareness or realization, and there's certain teachings that are driving at this kind of awareness, right? This is a very transcendent, ascendant part of realization, part of our being, right? So all the kind of teachings of you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're not this, not this, not this, are basically trying to discount the significance of whatever phenomena you're experiencing. Just say, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, as a way to try to break the trance. Right? When the trance is broken, even for a moment, then there's this recognition. In essence, nothing actually ever needed to change. This is why I'll emphasize at times the necessity of not trying to change anything, because see, all the effort to change is happening within the content of your awareness. It's still part of this game that keeps the fusion, that keeps the trance with the content alive. So when we allow everything to be as it is, or we do absolutely nothing about the content. There's lots of ways that I point to this, right? It's all the same thing, actually. To do absolutely nothing about the content is exactly the same as allowing the content to simply be as it is.